Okay.
Thank you for turning
Jim.
on the recording, Jim.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started and welcome everybody, but I wanted to introduce some people before we get started. So I'd like you to wave when I call your name. Jim Haberman. Jim Haberman is the one who sets up our Zoom, and he does the website for the Jewish Genealogical Society of Southwest Florida. Howard, you want to give a wave here? Howard is our program chair. How about Lee Ruggles? If you give a wave there. Lee Ruggles does our publicity. And Leah Cook, gonna wave there. Leah Cook takes care of our surname database that we have with our surnames and places that everybody in our society is tracing. And I thank everybody for coming. We have a contingency from Aviva. We used to be meeting at Aviva every month, but because of COVID, we decided to do everything on Zoom, although we did promise them that we would meet there in January. So all our meetings will be on Zoom this year from November through April, except January we'll be meeting at Aviva. I want you to hold your questions till the end of the presentation, although you can put them in the chat. And I wanted to let you know that there are going to be 15 Jewish genealogy programs in the Sarasota community. That's 15. You know that we do 6. Brandeis is doing 3 programs on genealogy, but you have to be a member of the local Brandeis chapter to attend those 3 lectures. And Temple Sinai is going to be doing 6 lectures on Jewish genealogy this season with some very big name people. Robin Magid, who works with the JRI Poland, Avraham Grohl, who is the director of the JewishGen, and Krista Cowan, who is an employee from Ancestry since 2004 and a director on the IAJGS board. And there's 3 other speakers in addition, but I just told you the 3 big names. If you want to attend the program from Sinai, there's a special price for Jewish Genealogical Society members of $36. Also, if you're a member of Sinai, it's $36. If you're not a member of the JGS and if you're not a member of Sinai, it's $54. Our programs for the JGS of Southwest Florida are free. However, we do encourage you to join the JGS of Southwest Florida because it helps us to pay for our speakers. I wanted to thank Leah Cook, and I also wanted to thank Doug Cohn for being sustaining members. They pay $50 each year to be members. Otherwise, it's $25 for a single and $30 for a family membership. Now I would like to introduce Howard Finkel, our program chair, who will tell us about the JGS of Southwest Florida programs and introduce our speaker. Howard.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everyone. We have some interesting programs coming up this year, in addition to, of course, today. On December the 19th, our speaker will be Peggy Jude, and the topic will be the 1950 census. Are you ready? The 1950 census will be released in April of 2022, and so this is a very timely topic for those of you who are going to want to do some research on that. As Kim said, in January, we will have our only in-person meeting of the season. It will be at the Aviva Senior Complex on Honore in the Kretschmer Theater. This meeting is going to be a workshop where we will have tables that you will be able to work with others who are doing similar research to your own. Regarding countries or shtetls or towns or anything of interest to you, and hopefully you will be able to learn from each other and make some progress in your own research. In February, on February the 20th, our speaker will be Emily Garber, and her topic is "It's What They Answer to: Understanding Ashkenazi Jewish Names." In our meetings in March and April will be a little bit different than our previous programs. They will both be led by Gil Bardage, and Gil is going to do a comprehensive program and workshop on DNA research. His topic on March the 20th, or actually the title of the program on March the 20th, is DNA Part 1, Help, I got my DNA results and I'm confused. And Part 2 will be on April the 17th, Help, I got my DNA results and what are the next steps? What he, between the March and April programs, if you're doing research on your own DNA, and if you, presumably you've been tested, he will give you some homework to do on your own, on your research, so that he can assist you in the April program, so that he can help you further your research on your own DNA. So that should be very, very interesting. Today, our speaker is Diane Jacobs, and her topic is Navigating JewishGen. Diane started her genealogical research 40 years ago, when most research took place in archives and research sites with microfiche and microfilm readers. Diane recently retired from the University of Central Florida. She restarted her post-retirement genealogical journey with her first ever attendance at the IAJGS 2016 conference in Seattle. She was a co-chair of IAJGS 2017 conference in Orlando and is currently president of the Jewish Genealogical Society of Greater Orlando. For the last 5 years, JewishGen has been engaged in a modernization of the structure of its organization and resources, as well as its website, to make its records more accessible to users around the world. Not only have the databases become easier to use, but early documents and papers prepared by pioneering volunteers have become easier to find, and their continued efforts in working with individuals and organizations have added millions of new records to their collection. The presentation is an effort to point out some of its new record collections and demonstrate how to navigate its important features and find some of its hidden gems. Diane, thank you, and you are on.
Thank you very much, Howard. I'm assuming that practically everybody that I'm looking at has used JewishGen at one time or another. And I know from hearing from people from my own experience that sometimes it can be very frustrating. So I've actually spent a fair amount of time just trying to find out best ways of using it and how it works, because it's also constantly changing. The fact that it's constantly changing means there's new stuff coming on all the time, but it can also be frustrating because every time you look at it, it's different. I gave this talk last year to our local genealogical society, and I had to redo all my slides because the website has changed back to what it was like 2 years ago. So I can certainly understand for people who try to use it, they may just sort of throw up their hands and try someplace else. So I'm going to assume you know really the basics of JewishGen, but I'm going to navigate it anyway because you might actually learn something new. So I'm going to start sharing. Oh, the other thing I should point out is that I didn't provide a handout in advance because my handout is essentially a PDF of my slides. And it will include a lot of the hot links. So if it's something that you want to explore that you didn't know was there, the links to some of the hidden places will probably be on the PDF. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Is that okay? Good, okay. So I call it hidden treasures because a number of the things that I found, I really had to dig for. So there are some that are easy to find, and I'll navigate and show you where they are. There are some that are actually harder to find. And I've had to bookmark some of the websites just so that I can go back and use them again. And I also want to point out to you that there are a handful of resources on JewishGen that are actually also available on Ancestry, and actually and some of them at no cost at all. So there's been a partnership in the past, and some of the things are easier to look at via Ancestry. So let's start. So this is what the website looks like today. It changed sometime in the last year. They had a new one and it went away. So anyway, for starters, you probably all know that in order to actually use it effectively, you really have to log in. And that's for everybody, whether you pay a contribution or not. So there's a place to register yourself, and that enables them to keep track of you and to send you email messages. And there's more of that going on as time goes on. So there's a place to get started. So if there's anybody who has not used this at all, this is it for first timers or for beginners on JewishGen. There is a way to find out sort of advice for beginners, some FAQs, info files, tools, and online classes. And so that's really just for beginners, but it actually is an access to some things you might be interested in. So the major portal to the database is this search function. And it's a unified search, which means that it searches all the databases. So you can use it to put in names, you can use it to put in town names, and it will give you it will tell you where the records are in its many databases. So that's useful if you're browsing, or if you've got a brick wall and this is their last resort of looking for something. It's actually a fairly powerful one because it has a number of useful features. First of all, you can search by surname, you can search by a given name, you can search by town. And then you can choose how the database looks for the names, either phonetically, or it sounds like, or it starts with, or it may use a fuzzy match. And there is a place in there someplace, and I don't have the link on it, but these are the search types. So there's the description of what those little what the items in the drop-down menu actually mean. I have found that my experience has been that I sometimes use both. I will use more than one search, more than one type, because the matching is different. The Beider-Morse phonetic matching is different from the Soundex system. And you may find, particularly if you've got a complicated name and you're not really sure how it's spelled or even how it's pronounced, using both of these gives you a better chance of finding something if you don't have a good grasp of how to find your name. And then we get the starts with and exactly. I never use is exactly, because although it's very targeted, unless you know for sure that that's how the name is spelled in every record that you're looking for, you will miss a whole lot of things. And I think most of you know enough about names by now to know that names are spelled in different ways depending. So those are the search types. So this is just an example. I put in one family name. I use the Soundex, and this is essentially what you get when you do the global search. You get a description here of the database, and over here are the records. So if you click here, you will get a description of the database if you want to know what's in it and where it comes from, and anything that JewishGen knows about the database, that's where you get the information. When you click on the records, you will get the individual records. This enables you to select those records that you think are relevant, because when you do this big search, you may find records in a country or a town that you know your ancestors didn't live in. So you don't have to look at those records. Just do the records that you think are going to be relevant to your family. So the next one is, if you are looking, so the global search is very useful for some things, but sometimes you want to be a little bit more targeted and you really want to focus on your town. And so you can use the family town. Now, JewishGen has two different databases for communities. And this is a description. There's a communities database and there's a gazetteer. The communities database really refers to communities that have been well established. And so there are fewer of them that were well established and have a known Jewish, had a known Jewish presence. And then the gazetteer is just names of places, many of which may not exist anymore or may not have had a large enough Jewish population to get into the communities database. And this is, I'm going to skip, so this is a comparison of what's in the gazetteer and the database. And you can see that they're actually quite different because the communities is much more robust, but the gazetteer has its own usefulness. So I'm going to go back just a bit. Right, so the gazetteer has names of locations. And this is the kind of information you get from a search result. This is the communities database, and I'll show you what that actually looks like. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how I used it. So my mother's father, actually my mother's parents, their marriage certificate indicated that that her father's father, her grandfather, her paternal grandfather, was born in Zebau, Austria. And that's on the document that came out of the marriage records in New York City archives. So when I started this years ago, of course, I had very little information, but I put in Zebau in Austria and came up with nothing. And that's because I put it in the communities database. When I went to the gazetteer, I had a long list of towns that sounded like Zebau. And when I went through them very, very carefully, there's a long list that I didn't reproduce here. But what did I find? I found that, oh, okay, it's not Zebau anymore. It's Seviv. It's in the Czech Republic. So that began my history lesson in the Austro-Hungarian Empire and how come that record said my great-grandfather was born in Austria, when in fact it is Bohemia, it is part of the Czech Republic, and I actually visited the town. But that took a lot of digging. The gazetteer was one way that I actually found out that what I should be looking for. So another example, another side of the part of the family was from Slonim, which is in Belarus now. That took me a while to find. But this is the result that I get in the communities database. So this is more robust, and it also showed the name of the town for 3 different periods of time, which is very useful, particularly if the town's name changed. Now, it turns out this didn't, but it still gave me some indication as the different countries that one town was in over a period of time. The other nice thing is that there's this little icon by the name of the town. When you click on that, okay. You should try again. Okay, you get a whole page of information about that town. So you get its alternate names, you get the other resources that are available for that town. You get a repeat here, you get a map, you get a list of the nearby Jewish communities. So you can find, for example, my family is associated with several other small towns in the area. And this gives you access to a lot of other, Landsmannschaften, where residents of that town were buried in New York, Yiskor books, access to the database for the area, and additional information. So there's a lot more information about that town. If you've got the right town, this opens up an opportunity to find out a lot more about that particular town. So there are other resources on the JewishGen webpage for education. For example, there's some new material up there. They have educational materials for youth for different ages, put together by the education committees. Access to other resources in JewishGen that will assist people in doing their genealogy. There's mentoring, virtual conversations with volunteers, and classes. So this is a portal into all kinds of other resources that JewishGen has available. And this is more their text-based classes, their home study courses, mentoring programs, some free and some for paid. So again, there's a whole area of additional resources now available or more easily available to learn about on that website. So the Kahila links is something that's unique to JewishGen. You're not going to find on any other portals to databases. And these are web pages commemorating places where Jews have lived. And they're listed by area, so that you don't have a very large number to look for. But, oops, sorry. There we go. So, for example, this doesn't have hot links, but so if you're looking to see if there is a Kahila page for your shtetl, this is a place to start. ViewMate, you probably know about, is a way to, it's a resource that enables you to post photographs or documents and ask for information about them. There are other websites that do this, and a lot of people are using Google for this and other Facebook pages. ViewMate is one resource. It probably was one, well, maybe it was, I don't know, the original one, but it's still very useful, and I have found it useful. You also find people who are volunteering to do the translations or provide information may have other information about your ancestor or your shtetl, and you can have side conversations that as a result of having met them through ViewMate. So the other large resource, JewishGen Family Finder. This enables you to connect with other people who are researching either your family, your ancestor's name, or your town. And sometimes these are useful and sometimes they're not. So they're really, they're there. So for example, I have my father's family name was variously spelled with an A or an O. As Ogashevitz. They came from Slonim, but I put in just the family name into the search, and I found myself. Of course, I would. It's good to know that you actually do find yourself. This is my cousin, so I know I've been doing in the right place. I had many years ago when I started this. I was in contact with another Ogashevitz who was researching her husband's family. Turns out we're not related. And then there's a new one that I actually haven't contacted yet, who also apparently has those relatives. Turns out that although I thought this was a unique name, not so unique, and a little bit more common. But this is something, again, depending on how you set the search features, you may find a lot of people, you may find few people, and you can contact them. So you don't have their emails, but like, a lot of other pages, when you click there, you will enable, the system enables you to email them directly through the system here. So let's see what else we have. Now, JewishGen in the last couple of years has added a specific Holocaust collection so that even though the general search finds resources there, if you really just focus on looking for information on the Holocaust, you can narrow it down by using a more targeted resource. So the database looks the same. I mean, you have these same options, but it will only search the Holocaust database. And you can actually, once you click this, there is information about what is actually in this Holocaust collection. And there's a place that a page that I'll show you later where you can figure out what's in every database that's there so that you don't have questions about how do I know what's in there. There's a place to find that out. So there are several new sets of materials that have been added. The Merriam-Wiener Roots to Roots collection. There's a long description about it. This is a private collection made by Merriam-Wiener, who spent 30 years working with archivists in Eastern Europe to make these records available. And she's written a lot about it. Sorry. So this is a description. It says will become available, but they actually are available. There's some content online, but a lot of these are materials that have become available, but not necessarily indexed and not necessarily translated. So the fact that JewishGen now has access to the collection means that over time, volunteers are going through it and making more and more of this actually available to the public. And I think that some of the records that I found from my ancestor in Belarus probably came from her collection. I've had access to them in bits and pieces over time, and because I've made a contribution to JewishGen specifically for translating or indexing some of those documents, I have advanced access to the indexing of those. So that's another sort of advantage to actually paying for something. But this will continue to be mined, as it were, and so new records may become available over time, which is why it's always nice to go back and see if there's anything new, or if you can find something new. So the newest that's been added is the Jeff Malka Sephardic collection. So for those of you who have been doing research long enough, we realize that we're all doing, or most of us doing Ashkenazi research, because that's where our families come from. But more people are discovering Sephardic roots or looking for those Sephardic roots. And the Jeff Malka was collecting, as Miriam was for her ancestors. Dr. Malka collected materials over many years and made them most recently available to JewishGen for searching. So those are new, and there are a few more new things will turn up shortly. So some things are harder to find. So when you do the unified search, you get sometimes a lot that you can't use. But if you really want to focus on looking for records in a particular area, you can look in the databases. And so there is on the website, and I'll find it eventually for you, show you where it is. There is a one-liner under research that says databases. And when you click on that, you get a list of the databases, and this is hot links. So you get all the databases, but you get them neatly categorized for you to make it a little bit easier to look at particular areas. And this includes their categories by being Sephardic, crypto-Jewish, and then Merriam-Weiners are separate and Jeff Malkus are separate. So you have a lot of different ways to get in, depending on how targeted you want to be. And remember, the more targeted, the faster it is, but you may miss things. So if you know that you actually want to look at a particular area, this is fine, and this helps you navigate. So the other place to look for your ancestors, Jover, you probably know the Jewish online. I can't read. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but I'll let you sort that out. But it's the online burial registry with volunteers from around the world documenting burials in Jewish cemeteries around the world in a particular format. And there's been an enormous database created, more than 4 million records from cemeteries, as I said, around the world. Sometimes that there's information that you would not otherwise find by looking at these records. When there are pictures, of course, you may find other names. You may, if they're in Hebrew, you will find parents' names. So it's something, if you're lucky, you will find more than one generation of your ancestors. And it's another way of looking for information. And then there's, as I said, the Holocaust database. So JewishGen used to have something called SIGs, special interest groups. And these were independent groups kind of set up under the umbrella of JewishGen as separate communities that had their own emails and their own databases. And they were able to focus and do research in very specific areas. Over the last couple of years, these SIGs have been transformed into research divisions. And then they have the same function, except that the communication has also morphed into the JewishGen discussion group. And these research divisions allow you to learn the history of the region. You find people doing research in the same area. You learn about resources specific for regions. And the discussion group for specific areas really isn't there anymore. It's a part of the general discussion group, but you can still ask questions about specific areas. So these are the research divisions. And these have sort of, as JewishGen is going through this modernization process, the names, some of them have changed over time. So some of them appear and disappear. That depends on the individuals who are actually responsible for them. Most of them are still there, but there are a handful that have changed, and I don't know what the changes are. So if you were a member of a SIG before and that SIG has disappeared completely and you can't find it, I would just try to write to somebody at JewishGen and find out what's happened. But the research divisions are actually pretty useful. I know one of the ones that I belong to has been responsible for getting translations of some of the records from Belarus. And you can actually make contributions in 4 specific research divisions to help offset the costs of some of the work that's actually going on for that particular area. So I want to go back now to something that's called info files. That's part of the Get Started menu. And this is something that really is hidden. You wouldn't necessarily think, if you've been using this website for 20 years, to look at the Get Started section. But the info files are really kind of interesting. They provide all kinds of information that are not specifically databases. And that's where JewishGen, a lot of it, they put a lot of material that's been collected and written about over the years. It just doesn't turn up in a database. So this is this is the file index. So they've turned the info files again into they've indexed it so that even though and created a completely separate database that shows you what is available for the country that you're actually looking at. And these are current country names or areas, but it's sort of everything that's available. And I'll show you. So Belarus has, this is what you get essentially for the info files by country. So it tells you what else is available for that country that may not show up on your general search. So for Belarus, it still says SIG. That hasn't changed, and that hasn't been brought up to date. But these are the original websites that tell you a lot about that country. And so again, these are sort of things that have accumulated over the years. And my guess is that JewishGen never throws anything away. So a lot of the resources that were created years ago are still there. Some of them have been updated by the people who involved. Others maybe not so much, but they're still there. So this is the index by area. And then there's a whole set of other files. So we have discussion group, guidelines, frequently asked questions, some of which may not be terribly useful, but then all the rest of the files are indexed by topic. So this is where their material appears that may have been created years ago that's actually still relevant and interesting. And I'll show you what some of it is. So since a lot of what we do is to try to figure out names of our ancestors, both given names and family names and names of shtetls, knowing how these names, what kinds of problems we have with these names has occupied the attention of many people over many years. And so there's a lot written. And we have, so these are all hot links. So in the info files, under names, you have a slide presentation. I actually will show that to you. We have some FAQs on names. We have a bibliography, Ellis Island myths, given names database, alternate surnames. So these are all documents that people have created in the past, posted them on JewishGen for general use, but they may be hard to find. So if you're stuck on names and want to read a lot about how to deal with the challenges, this is one place to go. And then there's a discussion of the Soundex coding and the Deutsch-Markov system for Soundex coding, which I used a lot of way back when. May not be as useful now with recent technology, but still important. So this is a slide presentation put together by Warren Blatt in 1998. And it's still useful. You can actually go find this in JewishGen. You can download it, you can look at it, and it's on given names, it's all on given names. And it's the kind of thing that you might want as a refresher to remind yourself all the variations. So, and this is essentially the index to that slide talk. So I said that there is a way to get to some records on Ancestry, to the Jewish records. And this is the hot link. I have not been able to find it by going directly to Ancestry and looking. So I don't know where I found it. I think probably it was a presentation from Krista Cowan at one of our IAJGS conferences. But it's a very useful link because you can go to the main website of ancestry.com actually, you don't have to go there. You can just use this link and you get into their collection. So it's actually part of their, you can see from the name, you wouldn't necessarily know how to go there. So once you go there, you go to the card catalog. And I found this one very useful. It's you put in given names and the keywords, and three databases come up. The Jewish given name variations is the one that is really useful. So I had some research done on my family from Belarus, and the names that came back were only partially familiar to me. And I was sort of guessing at what they were, because I guess they were in Russian. I hadn't seen the Russian version of these names before. So anyway, I put in Moshe, and and the fact that it was from Belarus. And what I got was a list of a whole variety of records of, I got a list of the names, gender, where it was found, and then where it was translated. So what country it turned up in. So because the name was found in Belarus and came to me in the US, I clicked on the view record. And what I got was this, and this is the kind of thing you get for any name that you put in. So this is the name you put in, this is a mix. So these were similar names in Belarus. And then the name that got translated in the US, there variety. In other words, if somebody named Moshe came to the US and wanted to make a name more easily recognizable or useful, there are a variety of names that were found in the records in the US for a translation or of this name. Now, then there are all these other name variants. And then there are a whole host of other European secular names, because if you remember from researching your names, our ancestors may have had a Hebrew name, they had a secular name of the language of the country that they were in, and they might have had a Yiddish name as well. So, and then at the very bottom, what the origin of the name might be in Hebrew. So this is essentially what you get for almost any name that you put in. It does a number of things. It tells you all the different ways that some of these might be spelled. That is, the same name might be spelled many, many different ways, even in Yiddish, because they've made diminutives and all kinds of other things. And then, as it turns out, that this particular ancestor of mine, who actually came to the States, used the name Morris. Now, that is, you may or may not find a one-to-one correlation, but at least it told me that I was sort of on the right track in guessing that that's who that was. So this is a very, very useful. This actually comes from JewishGen. I don't know how to find it in JewishGen. I'm just used to finding it in Ancestry. But for people who find an ancestor and find apparently a different name and different records, this may help to harmonize your feeling about those names. And particularly if the name it's the same basic name, has just been changed a little bit over time. So what else does Ancestry have? It has a whole set of Jewish records, and the link up here, it's a hot link. It shows you what Jewish records they have that are free and which are premium. So these are the free collections and these are the premium collections. They have the access to some information on the USC Shoah Foundation, the Holocaust Jewish survivor interviews. It's also part of the JewishGen Holocaust database, and you get slightly different information, or the links present information in a slightly different way in Ancestry and in JewishGen. So if you want to get the most out of it, look at both places for the ancestor who may have a record in the Shoah Foundation collection. So they've also got the Miriam Weiner collection. They've got the Jewish given name variations, etc. These are premium collections, which means you have to have an ancestry membership or a 14-day free trial. These should also be part of the databases that are available in JewishGen. I haven't gone back to check each and every one of them. And then you can they have a search. So this looks for a community and looks for the Jewish name variations. So both of these require a free guest account, and I guess Ancestry will give you a 14-day free trial as long as you make sure you don't go over time. So that's there. The last thing that JewishGen has is a general search, and it's actually a Google search. So that actually, I think it appears in research. I'm not quite sure where it is, but there's a custom search. And you can search for text on everything that JewishGen has. And you will probably get a list of all the things that appear. So it could be a database, it could be a record, it could be an article that somebody has written. And it is, oh, sorry, it doesn't include the databases. So it's only the text. So all the other resources that JewishGen has there, they're not databases, articles that people have written, you name it, can be searched just by using this one word, the general JewishGen website search. And I think that is probably, yes, all. So I can do questions, and because I have the JewishGen page open, I can also look up things for people on JewishGen.
Okay, this is Howard again. Thank you, Diane. That was really, really very good. I enjoyed that very much. I'm looking at the chat room to see if there are questions. Arthur, you're on here. Did you have a question, Arthur Sisman? You need to unmute yourself before you can speak. Like, apparently not. Anyone?
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, you don't have a question. Okay. Looking to see if there are any other questions. If anyone has a question, either go to the chat or raise your hand and Jim will then see you. Jim, do you see anybody with any questions? Kim.
Yeah, Susan Schlossberg said she cannot get into her JewishGen account. And I was wondering how that could be an issue.
She couldn't log in.
She just said in the chat she couldn't get
Yeah, I
into her
can't get in
Jewish.
my
All right,
account.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Susan.
So thank you. First of all, wonderful job.
Thank
I
you.
have a JewishGen account and I need to edit bits and pieces of it. And when I go in, I can log in,
Okay.
but then from there, I'm lost. I
Okay.
can't find myself. I can't make any edits. So can you just demonstrate using yourself how you
I will
get
try.
in?
I will try to do that, definitely.
Thank you so much, everyone. And happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. My guess is that you go to my profile. And there's contact information, which you can edit, change, mailing list, JewishGen Family Finder. What did you want to do, Susan?
Well, for example, I've got a relative who's divorced. And every year it's like, well, wish them a happy anniversary. Well, they've been divorced and he's remarried with 4 kids. So how do I can't find him. I can't find myself at all. I come to that exact page.
Okay, you have a tree in JewishGen?
I do.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't. And so I'm not sure I don't know how to edit a tree.
Well, that's okay. I won't charge you any extra. It's worth a thought.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Okay, well, now at least I know why I can't do it. Okay. Anything else while I'm here? Okay.
Diane, there's a question from Carrie Kaufman. How will we have access to the PDF? If
Okay,
that's
I am
possible?
going to send the PDF to whoever you tell me it should go to, probably everybody on the last set of emails. I will send the PDF to all 3 or 4 of you, and then whoever is responsible for sending it out can do that.
That would be Kim.
Yeah. You send
Okay.
it to me and I'll send it to everybody who responded with their email. There's one person who I didn't have an email for. So if you don't get it from me within a couple days, then you email me, please.
Howard Yafim has his hand up.
Hi, Diane, thanks for the lecture. It was good, very good. I tried the links you gave for this backdoor to Ancestry,
Yes.
but it brings me back to the beginning of Ancestry.
Okay.
Can you, I'm not sure. I think either the link is not.
I will hold on and
Okay, okay. Yeah, I tried these 2 links you gave. And
I put the links in the chat. The chat, if you go to
yeah, it is in chat.
the links are in the chat to get to the 2 places or 3 places.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what I actually did, so to make sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I did this exactly. Interesting. Well, do you have an account at Ancestry?
Yes.
Oh, but this is it then. I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Let me try something.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where I am coming, when I try
Okay,
this.
so I have signed off,
Okay,
and I'm going to search, and it says card catalog. You can get to the card catalog without an account.
interesting.
So that's,
Okay. Can you try that link again without an account?
well, that's what I just showed you.
But I think it's a different.
Okay, so
No, it's the
I'll
same.
show you what I did. So
Okay,
I'm still sharing my screen. I have signed out. And I went to search. And I went to card catalog. And I got that. And it doesn't show that I'm using my subscription.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so does that work for you or not?
I actually no. I tried it again.
Really?
I just posted how you can find the same thing at JewishGen. It's much more user unfriendly at JewishGen than it is at Ancestry, but it'll work. That's it.
No, that I know.
The same
I
one.
was wondering about going from Ancestry. Is anybody without an account can try this link, maybe?
I think what he doesn't understand is that when you sign out, you're on the Ancestry main page. So I think if you went further out and closed your Ancestry
Yeah.
Introductory page, then he would see what you're talking about.
Okay, so the second one the second link is here, all the JewishGen. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, this is Ancestry. That's not my account because it's asking me to sign in. So, I mean, yeah, I guess the only way to test it is somebody who really doesn't have an Ancestry account and therefore doesn't have anything in their cache that this,
Yeah.
could come up.
Actually, the second one is working now.
Okay, if the second one is working, then if you scroll down, the given name variations is right there.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. This is a 1528. I see. Okay.
Okay, so you can, there's another way to get to the names that way. The one thing that isn't working on Ancestry is their World Memory Project. Yeah, that apparently is something in progress. Okay, so anything else that I can look
Any other
for?
questions? Anyone else? Jim, is anyone else raising their hand? I think
I
we're
do
all
not see
set.
anyone.
Kim, would you like to close things, wrap things up?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know, if you ever want to find out about those programs, those 15 programs that I was telling everybody about from Sinai and also from Brandeis, look at the JGS of Southwest Florida website for the December bulletin. It's not quite out yet, but the December bulletin for the JGS will be out in a couple of weeks. And in that newsletter will be all the information about how you can register for the Sinai programs.
Okay, thank you, Diane, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.